Fear Zone Channel, your channel of terror. Good evening everyone, and now we come to today's story, which is of Mr. Jackson, and this happened to him in the town of North Little Rock, which is in the state of Arkansas, and at that time, which was in the year 2007, Mr. Jackson was 43 years old. But before I start the story, subscribe to the channel and leave your like, and activate the notification bell to receive more werewolf videos, and now let's get to today's story. And what I am going to tell you is what happened to me some years ago, because on a certain night, a werewolf managed to trick me, and for sure, it was that strange man that I helped that turned into this creature. And to start my story, I am a truck driver to this day, and I like my profession very much, and also, I know many stories that truck drivers that have passed through these roads tell, and they are very scary stories, until one day I passed through something supernatural. Well, at that time, which was a few years ago, I was traveling with a load of wood to deliver it to a neighboring town in a lumber mill, and after a few hours on the road, driving with my truck, I arrived at this lumber mill. Soon after, the workers of this company began to unload the lumber from the body of my vehicle. Then the hours passed, and my truck was completely unloaded around 7 o'clock in the evening, and after the work was finished, one of the workers asked me if I could take it to his town, which would take more or less, almost 2 hours of travel. Since it was my way, and I was going to pass through this town, so I gave this guy a ride, and we started traveling together, and I was going back to my house. After almost an hour of traveling, I saw that this man slept in the seat of my truck, and it could only be exhaustion, because he had loaded several heavy loads of wood all afternoon. But at a certain part of the road, I stopped my truck and entered a supermarket to get some beers, and I lingered there for a while, because I had dinner there as well. After I had done all this, I went back to the truck, but the man to whom I had given a ride was still sleeping in the cabin of my truck, so I left him resting, and would only wake him up when we arrived in his town. Meanwhile, I got on the road, and drove the truck on the road, and after a while, suddenly the man who was sleeping in the seat of my vehicle started coughing strangely, and out of nowhere, this guy vomited, and then he woke up very scared, and told me to stop the truck quickly. I didn't understand anything, because we were passing through a place where there was a forest by the side of the road, and this man wanted to get out of the truck right there, in that deserted area, and it was close to midnight. Well, I ended up stopping the truck to see what was happening to this man, but he started having some kind of epileptic seizure, and I was terrified, because to me this man could die. But something strange was happening to this man, because his body was creaking, as if his bones were making noise. I wanted to take this man somewhere habitable, so that someone would attend to him. But what happened is that he got a little better, and he was back to normal, but then this guy opened the door of the cab of my truck, and he got out of the vehicle, and by the light of the headlight, I saw that this guy was staggering and went into the forest. Even though I was scared, I got out of the truck and went after this guy, and as soon as I entered the forest by the side of the road, I saw this man's clothes lying on the ground, and he was moaning a lot and rolling on the ground, as if he felt a lot of pain in his body, but I was amazed, and I didn't approach this guy, because he was naked and without clothes. And suddenly, this man began to speak with difficulty, and in a strange voice, for me to leave, and to get away from him quickly, at which point I was confused what to do, because he seemed to be having a bad time. The fact is, that this guy stopped moaning, and with that I went to see him more closely, but suddenly this man got up from the ground. At that time I got scared with what I saw, because that guy was all hairy, and his eyes had a bright glow, that left me with a lot of fear, but I did not wait for that to attack me, and started running to the cab of my truck. As soon as I got to the vehicle, I got in the cab and closed the doors. Then what I did was I started the truck to get out of that place. But this creature came out of the bushes, and strangely enough it was standing like a man, but it looked like a big black dog, because it had ears and mouth like a dog, and had arms like a man's, with hands and fingers, but his legs looked a little crooked, and he was something very bizarre, and for sure this monster was dangerous too. But as I looked and noticed this animal through the window of the truck door, to me it was a werewolf. But this creature crouched down and stood on 4 legs like a dog, and came running towards my truck as I was driving away with my vehicle. That werewolf stood on the door side of my vehicle, and tried to open the door handle, and he was beating furiously on the door, but luckily for me, the door was locked, and he didn't get anything. I finally got on the road with my truck and got out of there fast, and I was thinking about this werewolf, and how lucky I was not to be attacked by him, because he seemed to be a very violent beast, and I would be very bad off if he got me when I went into the woods after him. The thing is, I was driving home scared, and after an hour, I got home, and I never thought that someday I might even see a werewolf like that in the woods near the tracks. The fact is, when I arrived at my residence, I saw that the bag of the suspect who turned werewolf was inside my truck, and I ended up opening this bag, and what was there inside the bag was some pieces of raw meat and large bones, which seemed to be rest of bones from some butcher shop, so I understood why the werewolf tried to open the door of my truck. Maybe he wanted to get his meat that was inside the bag. I don't know, but the way this creature was growling in rage at my vehicle door, maybe he wanted to attack me too. After all this, a few weeks went by. I went back to make another delivery of wood to that sawmill where the man who turned into a werewolf worked, and arriving at the lumber company, the workers there told me that the guy I gave a ride the other day, he never showed up at the lumber mill to unload trucks again. Well, I said nothing of what happened to me that night, and the guy who became a werewolf, I kept this secret with me, because as the guy disappeared suddenly, and was never heard from again, you will never know what happened to him that night. And also, I will never forget that day that I came across the werewolf in front of me. But even today, sometimes when I travel by truck on the roads, I look at the forests nearby, and I know that there might be a werewolf hiding in those woods. And I felt deceived and betrayed by the werewolf. Thank you all very much for watching my video, and if you like the story, leave your like, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to the Fear Zone channel to receive more werewolf horror stories.